Cool. Okay, so let's go back into it. So the subject at hand is morality in software development, and there is no doubt that we have lots of devices, and the ubiquity of digital devices is it's without any doubt, and the impact of software is massive on our life as a society. And as software developers, we don't get to see often the direct result of our actions, which is weird because the connection, the channel to the customer is actually shorter these days. Obviously, morality is a very subjective matter, right? So it depends on the culture, historical period, and since recently, apparently, on the results of referendums. So could we classify a piece of software as moral or immoral or even amoral, which means without ethical implications? Are there any ethical implications of what we're building? Well, as an industry, we seem to be quite open to embracing others and just playing nice with each other. There are instances, especially in the gaming industry, where some of the people have a moral compass so fucked up that I'm not even sure how they find their way in the morning to the hipster coffee machines. But it has a really negative impact on the society. Let's have a show of hands. Who here would work for an ammunition manufacturer exporting to oppressive regimes? Okay, one. I had one when I was WK, and he asked me how much. Going on for that, who is willing to work for a business that is repeatedly lying and encouraging hatred and even murder? Or about working for a team that is playing God with their users? Like in some sort of simulation game, right? Not as a business, but as a team, right? Because the team in that case was doing something bad. Well, there's no doubt that lots of good developers are attracted to the dark side for various reasons. But let's go a bit practical on what you can do from a moral stand of view to change things, and little things that you can do to progress the society as a whole. For example, I strongly believe that accessibility is a moral choice. And I think we should do everything in our power to achieve it, especially when it comes to children apps. And those of you who have children know that the age is not a thing in the apps. It depends on the capabilities of each child. The same thing with privacy. This app, for example, or this business as a whole, paid the price for ignoring privacy for the user, which is very funny because one of their core values is actually privacy. But you remember the whole address book saga of uploading everything. In the same way, localization. And this is actually a moral choice that has a direct impact on your revenue, especially given the progress and the growth in the Asian markets. What about making your apps greener? I think you should do this as well, and minimize the energy footprint of your app, especially that Apple is making it ridiculously easy to do it these days. And not all the people do it. What about code attribution? I mean, we saw that 70% of your apps are using pods. How many of those apps actually have a CocoaPods license included in a format that is visible to the end user? Not many, unfortunately. What about using open or closed source code from companies you don't agree with? That's a moral choice as well. What about a library from a business that is having a negative impact on your users, especially on your user privacies, when they sneakily put in stuff like that, where they are actually able to know who the user is, has personal information associated with apps. And that was changed in June this year. I wouldn't put Google Analytics in my apps. Or, for example, the presence or the absence of dark patterns is an ethical choice as well. And if you don't know what privacy zuckering is, it's that million of boxes where the user gets confused and they default to the least private setting. Well, maybe businesses should have a sort of code of ethics or some sort of professional practices document. Well, there are some efforts, but unfortunately they are more concerned with how the industry is perceived rather than the end user and how to make the well-being of the end user. So I know it might sound cliche, but we should do everything we can do to have a positive impact on the world. And it's very easy to become cynical once you see big businesses behaving badly. And all all of us have families and mortgages to pay and bills and whatnot. But I think we also work in a day and age where we're lucky enough we can make a choice. And I grew up in a communist country and I know what that means. And we're freakingly lucky these days. And you have a choice to say no to your boss if you don't agree with something and just move on. Right? And put future generations first. So remember at the beginning I asked you what is going through your head if you know this is the last week of your life. Well, take that and apply it for the rest of your weeks. And that's why the answer to my question was, I'll be here if I knew that this is the last week of my life. And when you understand that, how many of you know what this is, apart from the Romanians in the room? This is called the Happy Graveyard. And every single gravestone has a funny story about the person that is buried there. It's a very interesting metaphor there. And you'll understand that it doesn't really matter if you use stubs versus spaces, or Xcode versus app code, or storyboards or not, which is funny because one of the next talks is about storyboards. It doesn't matter what you do in terms of technology. And writing code just for the sake of writing code is nothing more than mental self-gratification, just to put it in nice words. Thank you. And I have one of those one more things. And I think Morgan alluded to this earlier. This was an amazing event 2 weeks ago. And I think you should come and be part of it on either side of a table. I think it's nice to talk to people and just exchange ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.